Christian parenting.
Marriage is the foundation of our families. When our marriage is strong, our families are strong. When our marriage is struggling, our families struggle too. We all know we should prioritize our marriages. However, in the busyness of life, it is so easy to push our marriages to the side and say we will focus on that later. If you're feeling the nudge to invest in your marriage, Christian Parenting's newest digital guide, Marriage Simplified, is the resource for you. Additionally, if you're struggling with difficult conversations about divorce, blending families, in-laws, or single parenting, we cover those topics head on too. Inside this guide, you will find our best and favorite podcasts, videos, and articles on all things marriage. You will also find conversation guides and discussion questions for your spouse and your kids. The best part is, since this guide is digital, you can download it straight to your phone or your computer and search through the resources whenever you need. Marriage is far from simple. I can attest to that, and no guide can truly simplify it. But we are so glad that you are taking the time to pore over these resources and strengthen the relationship and family that God has blessed you with. You can go to cpgive.org to download your copy for just $5. That's the best of the best resources from top Christian parenting contributors for just $5. Again, that's cpgive.org. Hey friends, welcome back to Pardon the Mess. I'm your host, Courtney DeFeo, and I hope your May is going well. Let's do a poll. How do we do a poll on a podcast? Maybe on Instagram I'll ask you, but do you think May is worse than December? May is the new December. Like, it makes my head spin off, particularly when you have a senior, but it's just so many things at once. So I hope you're hanging in there. Maybe you're not even listening to the podcast right now because you're like, I cannot do it. But maybe you're in a place where you're like, I don't know where to put my kids in school. It can be so hard and so confusing. And honestly, year to year, it can change. You can say, hey, I feel great about that private school. I feel great about the public school. Or maybe there's one child where you're like, I think they should homeschool. And I have friends that have done all of those. We have stayed in a school that we've loved for the last 10 years. It happens to be a small Christian school, but there really is no one way. And God can use anything to reach the heart of your kids, and they can learn in so many different environments. And so don't hear me in this episode saying homeschooling is better than others or it is the best option, but it's a really solid option. And I think you'll learn that today as we share, actually Lyndsey shares from Treehouse Schoolhouse. She is an expert in this category. I love her story that she started out homeschooling the family that she nannied for, and then now she's homeschooling her 4 kids, and she has a hub, a full website full of curriculum and resources for you. So if you've ever just had a slight inkling like interest, but you're like, nah, there's no way I could do that. I'm not patient enough. I'm not smart enough. I have a job, like all those things. I want you to still listen today because I think she could change your mind that it's actually more possible than you think. And we've actually built it up as something harder than it is. And so there's a lot of benefits, as you'll hear her share about. And the thing that really got my attention is when she said that her kids don't complain about learning. They actually love it. I was like, what is that like? I mean, do your kids come home going like, I just love to learn. I love school. And that's not the, experience a lot of our kids are having because they're gone so long or there's so much on them. And so I love the flexibility that it brings. And I also love, obviously, the ability to be able to disciple your kids in this environment and share biblically what you feel like God's saying about all these different subjects. And so she has a curriculum, a family Bible curriculum that's on her site, Treehouse Schoolhouse. And at the end of the conversation, it was after I was recording, she said, hey, let's do a discount. So the code is Pardon the Mess 15 at Treehouse Schoolhouse. And you can get 15% off anything in her store. And she has a ton of good stuff and also a lot of free stuff. So go look at all the free downloads. And as I look at her pictures, I'm like, oh, I just want to go sit with her kids and be a part of what they're experiencing. So check it out. Share it with friends. If you've ever had coffee with a friend and thought, could we do it? Is it even possible? Listen to this episode and enjoy Lyndsey from Treehouse Schoolhouse. Hey, Lyndsey. Welcome to Pardon the Mess. How are you?
Hey, Courtney. I'm so glad to be here. This is going to be a great
Yes, I'm excited. You've been a guest on many of our Christian parenting podcasts and come highly recommended. And it's a topic I've wanted to talk about for some time. And so I was thrilled you're here. I told you earlier, just, poking around on your website and seeing all the things that you're doing. You have a precious family. So will you start there? Tell us about your family and what stage of life y'all are in as parents.
Sure. So I have 4 kids. My youngest is 4 and my oldest will be 12 this week. So we are right in that beautiful stage between diapers and driving is what I like to call it, where we're really just exploring this. I've been having babies and nursing and all of that and trying to homeschool in the mix, but we're finally at the stage where we're traveling more. We have more freedom. The kids are sleeping through the night. So I feel like my husband and I are just like taking a big deep breath and saying, let's just enjoy these kids. And you're really just being intentional with that quality time and discipleship and all of that stuff. So my husband and I are both entrepreneurs and we work from home and we homeschool. And so a lot of our life is different every day with juggling all those different things, but doing it as a family unit. So it's really special.
My brother is 9 years younger than me, so he's behind me on having kids, and I'm going to get their ages wrong. Let me think. They're like 7, 9, and 12, something like that in that range. But it's funny because he has a new light in his eyes. Like I feel like for so long they were in diapers and he was wrangling 3 little kids, and now he's like, I think he saw me ahead of the game, was like, our kids are just good. I'm like, no, they're capable. Like they can shower, they can feed themselves, they can pick up stuff. And so I'm seeing some lightness in his eyes. It's like, okay, this is a new phase. And certainly comes with challenges.
So
but what are you loving about you guys traveling this summer? What do you guys have planned?
Yeah. So one of the things we wanted to do this year is go camping more. We live in North Carolina and we both are just super outdoorsy, love camping, love hiking. And so, camping with babies is a whole thing, which we did some. Wow. But now that our youngest is 4, we're like, okay, we can go camping more. It's like a cheap family vacation. Yeah. If you want to call it a vacation, it's a whole adventure. But so our goal is to go camping every 6 weeks this year.
Wow.
And so we have our stuff ready to go. We throw it in the car and we live close to the mountains, so we can get somewhere really beautiful within a couple of hours. So we just went camping last weekend and the next one we're doing is near the beach. So I've never gone camping near the beach. So we're going to the coast of North Carolina and sleeping outside and just making those memories and really getting the kids involved in the preparing and the setting up and the tearing down and building the fires and the fact that it's work, but it's like a worthy work.
Wow. I did not grow up in that kind of home. So I'm like, can I go? Can you teach me? Because I went camping one time, my friend Bridget that will be listening. And I was like so lost. I was like, I don't even know what to do here. And I think that's great survival skills and just life skills for your kids to know how to do that. It's amazing.
Yeah. My husband is actually the one who brings all of that to the table. I did not grow up camping and he really, really wants this to be our family culture. So I'm like, if you want to teach us, if you want to do the work, but as the mom, I'm learning like the camp cooking, which has been really a fun adventure for me just because it's like it's different than in your kitchen, so just getting the gear and it's been kind of like a fun family hobby. Yeah. That we're all doing together.
Yeah. It's amazing. Can't wait to see some pictures of all that. That'll be fun. All right. So tell me this. We were talking before we started that I don't know where my guests are on this. I would imagine with the amount of parents that we have listening that there is a slew of people that are either homeschooling or thinking about it and are terrified. And so I want you to just share with us, like, how did you even make that decision? Did you always know? So we're going to get to 3 myths, but will you just tell us a little bit about your journey of how you got into homeschooling?
Yeah, mine is very unique because before I was a mom, I was hired as a nanny. And in that position, the mother asked if I would consider homeschooling her child. Wow. And so I ended up going to workshops and learning all about homeschooling before I was a mom. And I ended up homeschooling this child as my career.
Wow.
In my early 20s. And so I was public school educated. My husband was public school educated, but I had this unique opportunity to learn about homeschooling in that career choice and fall in love with it. I was able to take this child who is a reluctant reader and a writer to just flourishing, loving books, loving learning. And I was able to realize like homeschooling is not public school at home. It's adapting this whole new way of living life. And even though I came in as as my job, we took our school outside. We took our school to the park. I was able to get involved with the homeschool groups in the area, the PE, the art class, rub shoulders with other moms that had like 7 kids that were, they're graduating their kids, And so as a young 20-something, not even married, I was like learning from these women and asking them all the questions and just kind of growing this vision in my own heart for what I wanted for my family.
Yeah. That's amazing. So have you seen it grow? I feel like I wish I had the numbers on me, but you may even know the numbers of like 20 years ago, how many kids were homeschooling. And I bet COVID maybe increased it. And there seems like a lot more families are doing it now. Have you seen that? And why do you think that growth is happening?
I think that, yeah, for sure, COVID, it was like people got a taste of having their kids at home. And honestly, they saw what like the public school systems were doing. And they're like, oh, I could easily do that, or I could do that better.
Yeah.
Or I could give my children more. And then how many hours a day children are at school, but they're not actually doing something that's like intentional or good.
Right.
It's like you're in a big group setting. And so just because the way that it is, it's not the teacher's fault. When you have 30 kids in a classroom, how much of that time is the child actually getting an education?
Right.
And so much of their day is in a class or being shuffled from classroom to classroom in a line, fluorescent lighting, just going from room to room, waiting on the teacher because they're dealing with behavior issues. And I think parents just started waking up of like, oh, we're getting their schoolwork done in such a short amount of time. And then they're having all this time to be outside and to pursue their interests and, to go down these rabbit trails with their own things they want to learn and their hobbies and sibling connections. And so parents that could do it at that time, we saw a huge influx of people saying, oh, well, I could do this. And then they started realizing that online schooling and like public school at homeschooling, there's other ways. Like it doesn't have to just look like that. And so then they started, getting that passion and seeing that. And so we definitely saw a huge influx during 2020. But I also just think the resources that are available to homeschooling parents are just like growing and growing and growing.
Yeah.
The more that creators that are out there like me and just more community opportunities. And so that's kind of one of the things I'm going to go through with the myths. Some of these myths that I'm going to say were actually true 20 years ago.
Yeah.
They were actually true. When I was a child, my mom says like she just felt like there wasn't enough support. She considered homeschooling, but she didn't really know anybody that was doing it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where now, like I walk into my church and I would say like the majority are homeschooling. Like
wow.
In my community. And so it's just been really interesting to see that shift so rapidly.
Yeah, that's exciting. I know if you've got young kids and maybe you're feeling this at different ages, but I remember, this is so ridiculous to admit, but we were in Atlanta at the time and Ella was my first child. And there was this really popular preschool. I think it was, what was it called? First Pres. And it was like, if you get her in First Pres, then she'll get into this school. And then if she gets in this school and this school, and I got so overwhelmed thinking the decision, it's like funny to say out loud, but I was really stressed. Like the decision I'm about to make for my 3-year-old is about to affect her schooling. This one decision is going to affect it. And so finally my mentor was like, you can change your mind, right? I was like, what? And she was like, every kid, she's like, I have 3 kids. One's homeschooled, one's in public school, one's in private school. And we do different things in different seasons. And that just like opened my mind. And I hope that does to some people today to be like, you could try this. And it's not the decision you're making for the rest of your life. But I hate that there's that weird spoken pressure. This like, we have to know what we want to do or what the kids would thrive in. And then I didn't even know one of mine would have ADHD, one has dyslexia. Like I didn't even know what kind of student or environment they would need. So I want to start out there, but let's start with one myth. We'll do 3, but what's the first one you want to share with folks today?
I would say that one of the top myths that I laugh about just because I have this experience with my own kids would be that homeschoolers lack socialization.
Yeah.
That they're going to be awkward, they're going to be isolated, and it's just not true. The bottom line is that it's up to the parent. So if your child is in a public school, a private school, or they're homeschooled, any of those situations, the child could be awkward, socially awkward.
Yeah.
They could be isolated from peers. They could be on screens instead of in real life interaction. So it's up to the parent. But when you decide to homeschool, you are also deciding that you are taking on their social life as well.
Right.
And I think that all parents should just decide, I'm taking on my child's social life. I'm not leaving that up to the school. But the beautiful thing about homeschooling with that is that I get to curate my children's social life. So, we make relationships at church or in homeschool groups, and I get to be there to say, like, I think that child is a good match for my kid. I see that the parents are raising their children, in the right way. I want to curate their relationship. So I'm going to invite those people over for dinner. And then we're going to have this whole family unit socialization, which is so much healthier because I'm getting to know the parents, I'm getting to observe the behavior of the children and how they interact. And then I'm able to help foster these relationships, go through critical thinking and like conflict resolution and ways that they're interacting. And so these days with homeschooling, there is so much opportunity for kids to have socialization in homeschooling groups, in church groups. And one of the beautiful things is having the same relationships year after year. So when you go to school, you know, they have a best friend, Sally, in third grade, but you don't know the parent unless you make a ton of effort, right?
Yeah.
And then after that, they move to fourth grade and they don't see Sally anymore. She's not in their class. Most likely, you know, like it just, you don't know what it's going to be like. Well, with our kids, like we started a homeschool group when my oldest, who's now 12, was 5. So for 7 years, these kids, I would say 75% of the families are still in the group from 5 years ago. So for 7 years, year after year, they've grown together and they have connected. And then I've been able to help like, oh, I really see that you have a connection there. Well, we're going to invite them over and we're going to go on family trips with these families. And, you know, it's like we're really, truly doing life and doing community. And so it's a whole nother level of socialization.
What is a homeschool group for those that don't know? How is that defined? Is that just loosely, I've got friends that we're all homeschooling together? Is it formal? Is it through a curriculum? How does that work?
Everything that you just mentioned is out there. So like for me personally, like there are co-ops where it's like an academic group where, you know, you would go get together and the moms would share the load of teaching certain subjects and you rotate around and you're actually going and checking off some of the things academically. That's not a group that I'm involved in. I think that's a great option, but I've loved doing all the education at home. I didn't want to be running my kids around, you know, too much.
Yeah.
So what I started was a homeschooling nature group where every Friday we get together at 10 a.m. and everybody packs lunches and we typically do a hike and it's all ages. There's 30 families involved on any given Friday. You know, there's probably 20 families that come with all their kids. We meet in nature. We go on a big hike or we play at a waterfall somewhere outside. We all have lunch together. There's no formal gathering of like, we're going to now do this study. But we do a lot of the things that you would do in school that you kind of want your kids to be a part of. So we do like a Valentine's exchange. We do a Christmas party. We do a maker's market twice a year where, you know, it's an entrepreneurial fair where the kids can sell things. We do like an art walk. So any ideas that the moms have, they bring and we just, you know, different moms will lead different events. We've done an international fair where we like show off a country we've researched and try food. So just anything, like you could, the sky's the limit, especially if you're willing to jump in and kind of like lead something. But yeah, there are groups of all sorts in the homeschooling
I love
world.
that you shared the different options because I know when I thought about it for like a blip and talked myself out of it really quickly, I was like, well, I could basically teach arts and crafts and maybe Bible. I'm like the rest of the actual subjects, I was just like, well, I could never do it. You know, I'll tap out at my intellect at age, you know, third grade math or something like that. And so I think I just made it sound like categorically, I can't do that. But I love that there's so many options to say like you could co-op or there's probably online, imagine resources where it's like, no, you could do this. Like you can teach fourth grade math. You just think you can't kind of thing. Did you have those feelings early on or were you just like, we're doing this thing? I guess because you had the experience being a nanny before but did you ever have those feelings of like, what will I do when it comes to 8th grade?
Yeah, you know? I only taught my student up to 3rd grade. So, I mean, now I'm dealing with 6th grade, you know, 7th grade. And actually my second myth is that parents have to be an expert at all subjects and all levels. And that's actually not true because how do you expect anyone to be that? You know, like that's not what homeschooling is. Homeschooling, I see my role is less of a teacher and more of a facilitator and of the one who's doing the research on the books that I want them to read and on what level they should be in. I'm helping them, you know, as they get older, especially. So right when it's starting to feel like this is in over my head, I don't remember algebra. I don't remember how to do this. Like right when you're getting to that point is when you actually want your child to be more of a self-teacher. You want them to kind of get to this point where they're taking ownership of their school and your job is to put the good resources in front of them and to hold them accountable to these things. But the beautiful thing about homeschooling is they get to chase down what they're really passionate about. And when they're passionate about it, you don't have to force them to do it. You know, you're like,
right.
So for example, my son who's in 6th grade, he is a language arts guy. He wants to be an author. He just is a, you know, voracious reader and loves to write. You know, that's what he excels at. So I put him in front of the best books. I give him the opportunities to like learn the skills to write. But then when it comes to math, I'm kind of like, you know what? I need the basics done for math. And so I found a solid online math program because 6th grade math, I'm just like, I don't have the time. I'm dealing with teaching my little kids to read. That's good enough. He's getting what he needs done, So and then there are classes. There are ways to, give things to other people who do have the passion. You can hire, a part-time tutor for certain subjects. So your job is more curating and facilitating, especially as they get older.
So good. Have you guys heard of the online learning program called IXL? My kids were actually required to do IXL as a part of their school, and they would roll their eyes when it was time. But I think they would tell you years later, and I would tell you that it really worked and it helped them so much. They received the help they needed in subjects where they were struggling. And I know other parents at our school that used it for their kids that are ahead and they weren't getting challenged enough in the classroom. IXL Learning is an online learning program that enriches your homeschool curriculum and your child's classroom learning. It offers practice in math, English, language arts, science, and social studies while adapting it to each child. It meets them where they are. Plus, IXL encourages students to be curious and empowers them to choose how to learn. And the best part is IXL is easy for parents. Don't we need that? One site gets you all you need, and IXL customizes learning for each child in your family and their specific needs. IXL is organized by grade, subject, topic, and subtopic, and it makes it simple to find activities for the exact skills that you are covering. It also offers instant feedback and explanations of the topics as the kids use the program, which is super helpful. So you can feel confident as a parent that your kids will gain an understanding of the skills they are learning. Make an impact today on your child's learning. Get IXL now. And Pardon the Mess listeners can get an exclusive 20% off an IXL membership when they sign up today at IXL.com/today. Visit IXL.com/today to get the most effective learning program out there at the best price. You probably know Avocado Green Mattress for their certified organic mattresses. I've been talking about that lately, but did you know they also make unbelievably breathable natural bedding? From soft organic cotton sheets to light as air silk and lofty down duvets, their bedding is designed to naturally regulate your temperature and keep you cool, comfy, and sleeping soundly all night long. So listen up, hot sleepers, this one's for you. This bedding is perfect for hot sleepers in warmer months. Hello, Texas summer. Avocado sheets and duvet inserts are naturally breathable and they help regulate your temperature so you can sleep cool, dry, and comfortable all night long. And just like those mattresses, avocado bedding is crafted from renewable, biodegradable materials with the highest social and environmental standards. So it's better for you and better for the planet. And beyond that sustainability, this bedding is designed to deliver luxurious comfort that will have you looking forward to crawling into your bed every night. Head on over to avocadomattress.com to save 10% on all bedding and 50% on clearance bedding. Avocado, dream of better. Okay, so let me ask you this, and maybe you'll get to that in a second, but I was just thinking about your kids. What benefits have you seen in them? Like, I imagine just sibling relationships or just creativity or maybe even margin. I would imagine the margin that they have around their learning is probably so beneficial, but what are some of the things you love about it?
Yeah, I would say they really, really love to learn. Do not have this what I feel culture has this idea that school is terrible and I'm just trying to get through it as quickly as possible. My kids don't really know what that is. They don't have that. They want to learn. They think school is fun. They want to read, especially my older kids. They're just starting to get into relationships with other children who have different schooling, experiences. And they're like, I don't understand why they always talk about their worst part of their day is going to school, or they just hate reading. Because in our life, it's that's been the culture of our home, that school equals connection, school equals experience, school equals fun. And so I just think that they're going to be lifelong learners because they've learned that learning is great and that readers are leaders is something we say in our house. It's they love it. And also because they've had the freedom to chase down things they want to learn about. And that's been a big priority to me because I do think some homeschoolers, if they're just trying to get by, if it's just a checklist, if it's not a passion of the mother and it's just sort of felt like that feeling in the home that it's just something we have to do, then the kids can still feel that way in a home.
Yeah.
But, in our home, it's this is part of our family culture. It's so beautiful. It's so amazing. We get to do this. And then I would also just say like the creativity, the chasing down the interests, the hobbies, the amount of space and time they have to do that. My husband is a builder. And so they'll get their schoolwork done around whenever throughout the day so that they can get outside and help my husband build something. They're in all kinds, they sew, they crochet, they cook from scratch. They know how to do things because there's time for them to do them. And they're, our intention is like, we study our children and we're like, okay, they're really passionate about fill in the blank. Well, let's give them the resources to chase that thing down. Let's put them in a class. Let's bring those things in the home.
So cool.
And so I would definitely say that. And then definitely the sibling bonding, which is the more time they're together, they're going to fight more, but they're through fighting, they grow, I'm not saying it's always beautiful and pleasant and lovely, but it's like, there's character building. They also do a ton of house chores because they're home all day. And so I always think this because my big kids, right after breakfast, they have a lot of home chores. They both take care of all the dishes in the house. I never do dishes. They're taking out trash. They know how to do these things and they spend a lot of their day contributing to the family because we live our life at home. And I often think when it's 9 a.m. and I've got my 12-year-old son doing dishes, I'm like, well, if he had to rush off to school, he would never have this opportunity to learn how to serve his family in this way and get better at these skills and things. So just a lot of things like that you just
so good.
Don't think about.
Wish I'd known you a few years ago. You're convincing me. Do any of them ever ask to go to school, and how do y'all deal with that?
They don't actually. I mean, when they were little, they would, have these things like, oh, they'd see it on a cartoon or something like, oh, I want to ride a school bus or whatever. But I have to be honest, we live right across the street from an elementary school and they see how long the kids are in school. And we'll finish our schoolwork by noon and go take a bike ride and ride right past the school. And I'll be like, hey guys, you want to go in the building over there and hang out for 3 more hours? Or are you happy to be with mom? And so also just because they do have so many opportunities, they have a ton of homeschool friends. It's like, they'd feel like the odd man out now at this point. Going to school. It's not like there's all this pressure from friends.
That's so great.
Yeah, we don't have a ton of friends that actually go to traditional school. And the ones that we do have, like I mentioned, it's like they talk about how bad school is. So
how funny.
Why do, my kids don't.
They're like, no, thanks. That's amazing. All right. Third myth. What's the last one on your list?
Just the fact that if you homeschool, you have to lay down your entire life as a parent.
Wow.
You cannot have anything outside of homeschooling. It requires all of you and all of your time and all of your passions and callings and giftings. And
so good.
I'm really passionate about this one because I'm not saying that it's easy all the time to carry 2 things. I homeschool and I also have a business, but it's possible. Something that is a part of our family life. My kids know about everything that's going on in my business. We pray about it as a family. They get to be involved in my business. And so if there's any way, I'm really speaking to those entrepreneurs, you can do it. You can be creative. And there's also, like we talked about before, there's flexible scheduling. There's ways to work your kids' schedule and your homeschooling schedule around your work schedule.
It's great.
And around your social life and your self-care and all of those things. And so it's taken a while, but I have figured out that I can do both and it's possible.
It's a great reminder. I think that is a huge myth. That's like, oh, well, this will be the sacrifice. This will be me for 20 years. But that is a great reminder. So tell us about your business.
Yeah. So early on, when I started homeschooling, I started creating resources for my own children for our homeschooling. And I decided to, make them available to the world. So we sell homeschooling curriculum and other resources for family life, chore charts and homeschool planners and, all kinds of curriculum for homeschooling. I also have a family Bible curriculum. So I'm really passionate about intentional family discipleship, homeschooling or not. And so that is something I'm really passionate about. We have homeschooling curriculum for different holidays that point to Jesus, and then also just a full Bible curriculum.
I love that.
We also have a blog where I'm sharing all the tips. So 7 steps to get started homeschooling, legally, even, how do you do this? And then how do you set up a daily rhythm? And how do you, a tour of my homeschool room. So all of that stuff for the new homeschooling parent or just considering it. We do a lot of free book lists and free downloads to try out different curriculum. So we're kind of like the homeschooling hub for information, but we also have resources that we
I love that you do the book list because even ones that you would think were fine, you start reading it, you're like, that is not fine for a first grader.
Right. And just the good quality literature, because I feel like that's what's lost. You walk in a library you just can't pick up any book these days and get the same feeling of like the Beatrix Potter, like the good quality literature.
Gosh, so good. Well, I love that you and I are both believers and we both believe in discipling our kids. And I think that as I think about it, what I've seen from a lot of parents that are moving to homeschool is like, I'm not okay with what is being taught to them in a public school environment. We're at a Christian school currently, but I do think that's a big reason why parents are going, wait, like, I am not okay with them going to school every day, hearing some things that are not in line with biblical truth, which, you know, that is reality for some folks. And it can be great discussion for parents at night to be like, what did they say about the science? What do they say about this? But so tell me about that curriculum. So say someone doesn't have the choice, they need to put their kids in public school, but they really want some sort of underlying curriculum to help them teach the Bible. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so it's called Rooted because it's really based on this idea that when our children are rooted in God's word and in their identity and who they are in Christ, that they're going to flourish in this world. But first they need to have their roots down deep. And it really comes from my testimony of being raised in a Christian home. I went to public school, but my parents were really intentional with the conversations with me and getting me involved in church and really giving me roots where I believed I knew who I was when I graduated high school, and even being in a public school environment, who I was in Christ. I knew what kind of woman I was. I had value.
Wow.
When I was shaken by breakups and moves and all kinds of friendship, drama and like all kinds of church hurt and all of those things, the bottom line was I was rooted in the word of God and I knew God. I knew him personally. I had a relationship with him. And so it's that verse in Jeremiah that says, when you're planted by the living water, your leaves will not wither and you will bear fruit. It's called Rooted. And what you can do with it is basically, it tells you exactly what to read each day and exactly the questions to ask, prayer prompts. And if you're like me and you also love beautiful things, there's art pieces in there, like classic art that, points to different Bible stories. There's poetry to read. There's a hymn linked in there to Spotify so you can worship together with your family. And so it's really just a practical tool. It's kind of like a devotional meets a curriculum. So if you did homeschool and you wanted to go a little deeper with some writing activities and things like that, there is some of that in there. But you can use it as a family devotional in the evenings or over breakfast is when we like to do it.
So cool. Can't wait to share it with everybody. So talk to the mom. I just can imagine there's a mom or way more, hundreds listening that are feeling a little shaky in their spirit right now. That is like, I've been feeling this tug, but I'm so scared. Like, I don't think I'm a good enough, whatever, teacher. Do I have patience? Will I get frustrated? So talk to her that's like, I think I'm interested, but I'm scared to death.
Yeah. I mean, do you guys remember that feeling before you had a baby? It's like, we already are their teachers. We already taught them how to walk and how to tie their shoes. And, we sang the nursery rhymes and we probably were the ones who first started reading to them. And so it's really just an extension of parenting. I think that we put it on this whole different playing field, but you already do it. You just add a curriculum and you follow it and you disciple your children along and you teach them. And so the reality is we can't do it alone. We need Jesus. We need to rely on him. He's giving me strategy every day to how do I move to this? Oh, I see that my kid needs that. It really makes me reliant on him in my parenting even more. But you guys already do this. If you're an intentional parent, you already do this. You already teach them. And really it makes your life just so much different. It's a whole different lifestyle of really just living life every day with your kids and getting more time with them. You're getting more time back because you get to cook with them. You get to be with them all day and get into their little worlds every day, all day. And it's really, I really would encourage you just to ask the Lord to show you and help you take one step because it doesn't have to be tomorrow you start a fully functioning homeschooling family. It's like you can take one step. You can dabble with it a little bit over the summer. You can ease in. And there are so many resources out there for you, even, online, like on my website, but also just in your community. Start doing some digging in your community for a co-op or another mom that might mentor you in the process, because there are just so many people like me who love it and feel like this is just such a breath of fresh air. And so many moms we want to encourage and help take that step.
I love it. So, so good. Where can they find you and connect with you?
Yeah, you can find me at treehouseschoolhouse.com or on Instagram at treehouse_schoolhouse.
Love it. Love it. All right. Last question. What is God teaching you right now in parenting? Probably 100 things, but just pick one for me if you don't mind.
Yeah, I would say it's this. So my older kids are 5th and 7th grade, and it's this feeling of I need to hold them close and get to their hearts emotionally while also simultaneously honestly starting to take steps of letting them go.
Wow.
Not letting them go like they're going to graduate and leave me, but more just like I need to give them more opportunities to have independence and autonomy, because homeschooling, you're with your kids all the time and it can feel like I just want them. And it is this intentional to be like, it's okay to have them start attending this group without me and then like have those relationships and that connection. But it's a both and, because as they're growing in their independence, you need to be connected to their hearts. You need to have that open door of communication. And so I'm just processing that with the Lord and asking him to help me as a mom let go while also maintaining that closeness.
Gosh, you and I almost cried before we got started, but I'm like, I fully get that with my senior, and realizing the places I did it where I would have said to you when she was in 5th and 7th that I was letting go. And then you look at certain areas that I probably held on to too long, and it was a disservice to her.
Right.
And so it's easy to see now, but looking back, you're like, oh, it's so painful. But that tension and that tug is so real. It's so, so real. So I'm glad you're looking at it now, because I think a lot of people get to 18. They're like, oh, I should have let them do some more things by themselves. Like never done laundry before or whatever the thing is. So
yes, it's definitely giving them that space to remind them that they are capable. And when they're at home all day, it's easy to just do those things for them.
Yeah,
but I feel like that's this beautiful opportunity that we have as homeschooling families too, is like, that can be part of their curriculum, is learning those life skills. So making that intentional.
Love that. All right. Last question. What's something super practical? I'm imagining just with your ministry and life that you got lots for us, but just like a daily function kind of thing. Give us a tip that's working for you guys.
Yeah. One thing that we do, even when we stay home all day, is I pack lunches in the morning. And so I will pack all the kids' lunches and my lunch, and then it'll just be on the counter. I like to eat a hot lunch, so it'll be like ready, and then I'll just warm it up. But for the rest of the kids, it's like, you guys can grab your lunch at any point in the day when you're doing school, take it to the schoolroom, take it outside. And so I'm not stopping our entire day and making lunch in the middle of our day, in the middle of our school life. So that's just been like a simple, practical thing. And now that the kids are getting older, it's part of their chores. Make your lunch in the morning, even if we're not going anywhere.
That is great. What a helpful tool. Hey, you're awesome. I wish I'd known about you about a decade ago, but this is such good resources for people. And I'm just thinking of moms right now that are like, maybe I could try this. I've been scared, but I really appreciate what you're doing. And I can't wait to meet your kids out in the world. I think they're going to be pretty awesome, socialized, smart, awesome people of God. So I hope to meet them one day. Have a good day.
Thank you so much. You too.
Take care. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Pardon the Mess. As always, we've got more encouragement and resources over at christianparenting.org. And you can also stay connected with us on social media at Pardon the Mess. And if you like this episode, I'd love for you to do 2 things. Press follow on whatever podcast platform you love, and also be sure to leave a rating so other parents can find us. Remember, you're never alone in this beautiful mess of parenting.
Hey, this is Steph Thurling, Executive Director of Christian Parenting and host of the Christian Parenting Podcast. Every month, thousands of parents read and listen to our podcasts, articles, and digital resources. Did you know that in the past 12 months, the shows on our podcast network have been downloaded over 4 million times? Each one of those numbers represents a life, and we are deeply moved that so many people are receiving accessible, trustworthy, and timely biblical guidance through our resources. If you have been impacted by Christian parenting, we would love to hear your story. Visit christianparenting.org/testimony to tell us about how Christian parenting has impacted your family and your faith. That's christianparenting.org/testimony, or just click the link in show notes.